of the heart of the matter, and today we're talking about communicating with an avoidant attached partner and understanding the overwhelm. We want to understand that the dynamics of communication between an anxious and an avoidant attached partnership can be the make or the break of a relationship. Most people are coming to me saying that there is a break in communication. Either the avoidant attached is not communicating enough, and the avoidant attached complaint is that the anxious attached wants too much talking and it's overwhelming. So what we find here is that a lot of the anxious attached want to understand the avoidant attached, and this episode is to help you to understand where the avoidant attached person is coming from. If you do have an avoidant attachment style, you could feel free to share this with your anxious attached or secure attached partner, because they're always open to understanding you more. So the avoidant attachment style often leads to behaviors and emotional responses that might seem a little confusing, particularly when your partner might be feeling anxious or overwhelmed themselves. So one of the areas of these dynamics that becomes incredibly evident is throughout the day, you have an everyday medium of text messaging. What happens is that in the beginning of the relationship, the avoidant attached partner is going to text quite frequently. Now that for the anxious attachment style person becomes a pattern. They expect it. Now what happens is life happens and the avoidant attached starts paying more attention to their work again or themselves. They might start going to the gym. And then the anxious attached person starts to feel like, this person's pulling away or drifting away and don't want to be with them. And it's not necessarily the case. So when it comes to the avoidant attached, a text message can be quite overwhelming, and it depends on the time of day when that text message is coming in or what they are doing. Those with an avoidant attachment style, they often value independence, and they can feel very overwhelmed when they're faced with multiple demands or the emotional stimulation. And this includes, and not just, significant life events like the death of someone or losing a job or a big commitment like marriage or an engagement. It's also the things like that may not seem to be a big deal for those with an anxious attachment style. It might just be a simple text message that says good morning. Now, what that does is it adds an emotional overload. For those with an avoidant attachment style, frequent texts may trigger feelings of obligation or overwhelm. They may feel like they're being pressured to respond right away or engage in a conversation when they may not be in the position to do so. They may have other things that's happening. They may be getting ready for work and they're unable to respond, but now they're feeling pressured. Or they may be at work and a message comes in that needs attention and they're unable to do that. So while they're focusing on their work, they're also thinking about the possibility that you might get upset that they don't respond in a particular time. Or they may respond to you, but now they need a good half an hour to get back to the task that they were doing, mentally get back to it. Because it's not easy for them to switch on and off, switch off from work, attend to a text message, switch off the text message, go back to work. So it takes a lot of time and it's overwhelming. And we want to appreciate that their brain makeup is very different than that of an anxious attachment. Just as it would be very difficult for them to get their heads wrapped around the mind of an anxious attached, it's just as much a struggle for the anxious or secure attached, right? So we just want to empathize, appreciate, and ask ourselves if we can accommodate their trauma minds as well. There's also the fear of intimacy. Remember that those with an avoidant attachment tend to keep emotional distance. A flood of messages, especially about emotional topics or expressing needs and love and want, can feel or it can be perceived as a threat to their autonomy. And this can cause them to want to withdraw a little further. Now, there's also the mental overload. Now, if we're thinking they're already preoccupied, any additional communication can add to a mental overload. Responding to a text, it requires mental energy. If you notice, your avoidant attached partner, they don't usually make grammatical mistakes. They don't do a whole lot of texting. And if you watch them when they're responding to text to other people, you will notice that they take a very long time. They're very careful with what they say. Now, imagine if they've got a project at work, or they're with their kids or friends or whatever they're doing. They are going to have to use that same energy and time that you witnessed them using on you. So they're going to have to disconnect focus from whatever it is they're doing to respond to you, right? And if they have a pattern with you where you've been upset with them because they did not respond in time, on top of the overwhelm of having to reach out in a timely manner and in a way that's thought through, meaning the message is thought through, on top of that, they're now afraid that you're going to be upset. So it becomes a lot for them to handle mentally and emotionally. Again, it's something that we want to be aware of so that we could appreciate what's going on in their minds. Now, what can you do if you have an anxious attachment or a secure attachment and you're dealing with this? When an anxious attached partner or a secure attached partner suspects that your avoidant attached partner is feeling overwhelmed, there are many strategies to showing your compassion and your understanding. You want to practice patience and timing. Timing is everything here. If you sense that your partner is stressed, consider reducing the frequency of your messages. Ask yourself, do you really need that good morning, good afternoon, good evening? Do you really need that? Is it necessary for your relationship? Does it add a whole ton of value? All right. And give them space. Give your messages some space. Try to perhaps message once a day. Remember, there was a time when we did not have telephones, and those couples had a lot to talk about when they finally met each other. They were able to give each other space, not because they wanted to, they had no choice, but they missed each other. And that's because there was, the constant communication wasn't there. When a housewife or a working man was stressed out about the relationship, if he felt, insecure in any way, he had no other way of dealing with it than by himself or her by herself. They were managing their emotions because they couldn't constantly send a text to their partner, and that did not cause an overwhelm for the partner. People learned how to manage their emotions on their own instead of leaning too much on someone else. We're in a different time, but a little bit of that old time thinking can probably help us now. Right? So try not to send too many messages to your partner if you know that they are feeling overwhelmed, if something's going on in their lives, and you are going to know. We tend to feel people's energy. What we want to do is remind ourselves that it's not personal. It's not that they don't love us anymore, they don't like us, they don't value us to come to us anymore. It's nothing of the sort. They're learning to deal with things on their own, right? So you want to be very mindful of that. You also want to be mindful of what you're saying. Keep messages light and positive, even in overwhelming moments. Try to keep your relationship as a fun space for both of you. You don't need constant reminders or constant validation that your partner is not going anywhere. You don't need them to remind you 3 to 5 times a day that they're not going to leave, they're not going to betray you, that they're right there. You want to start looking at their actions so that you could remind yourself that this person keeps showing up for you. Learn a little bit of self-soothing. Use open-ended questions sparingly. What I've found in my personal life and also in this practice with my clients is that an avoidant attached person will generally not respond to open-ended questions or statements. Right? You want to be very simple in questions, or the best thing is, if you really look at it, a lot of times the questions are not necessary. A lot of times people feel like, you've made plans to go out a few days from now and the day before you haven't heard anything again. So should you follow up? No, if an avoidant attached person makes plans, chances are they've already locked that in. They haven't forgotten about it. And there's no need to confirm over and over and over again. We want to make sure that we're not having the same conversations or the same questions repeatedly. All right, you can send a message every now and again and say, I'm just checking in, I hope you're okay. Or if there is something like really important, you might be married, you might have children, you might be living together, bills, if it's really necessary, you can always send a question, but let them know that there's no pressure to respond right away. That allows them the freedom to relax and get back to you as soon as they have that opening that feels comfortable for them as well. You want to encourage their self-care. Encourage them to hang out with their friends. Let them know that you're okay with it, because a lot of times in the mind of a person with an avoidant attachment style, they tend to think that you're going to be upset if they do things with their friends or if they go out with their family members. They tend to think that you expect them to do absolutely everything with you, and that adds to pressure. A lot of times as human beings, we want to be in circles where we feel absolutely comfortable to be a particular side of ourselves. Sometimes you have friends and you have a different way of talking around your friends, in a way that, you might be of the same culture, so you understand exactly what the other person's saying. Or you may not feel comfortable saying absolutely everything to your partner, and you shouldn't. You should not feel comfortable speaking about any and everything with a partner, right? Just the same way that we have boundaries with our parents, we have boundaries with our children. We have a few boundaries with our partners, so you want to be careful. Meet your partner where you both enjoy each other, and should there be an issue that you need to discuss, choose a time and place for it. Look, I am going to admit that navigating a relationship with someone who's got an avoidant attachment style can be a challenge, especially when stressors come up. However, when you can understand and appreciate and be more aware of your attachment as well as the avoidant attachment, you'll be able to build some empathy, build some boundaries with yourself, and that's going to benefit the relationship. You can form happier, healthier relationships with people of different attachment style. I hope this has been helpful. If you've got questions, reach out to me. Feel free to follow me across social media, where I'm talking about everything attachment style to help you to build a better relationship with yourself and a relationship with the people around you. Until next time.